abilities.
All right, so hey, this is Gyrnos and Zyziva with the bonus roll. We are going over the Unearthed Arcana Mages of Strixhaven. Um, Now, I honestly think that they were not expecting to release this as early as they did, but honestly, from what I'm going through, I don't really dislike this. I think a lot of the negativity that I've been seeing so far has been people reacting to the whole multiple classes able to take this subclass. But I don't particularly hate that. And you said something interesting about how it could relate to a party group.
Yeah, and I mean, I've literally seen one person's negative comment, so that's not much to go on. But I think multiple different classes, it could be a good way to unite your classes, like you're all studying or working on the same thing, or to give similar goals. I mean, so far we've talked about like how these classes can fit together to reduce weaknesses, but um if you wanted to have, oh, we're all in the college of, then you would have more unified quests, and you could let the different classes that can take that, the two or three, for your players, all be in the same vein and have a lot of the same goals and lore, since and give a type of ability that they could do together.
Yeah.
Like and on the ones that only allow two, like this current one, the Quandrix we're about to get into, being
Yep.
only sorcerer and wizard, that might be a little harder to build a party out of. But the like bard warlock wizard or druid sorcerer wizard, if you have a really small play group that wants to play different classes, this could be a good way to unify them.
Definitely. And so with that, we are going to take a look at Mage of the Quandrix. So as we said, the subclasses in this are a little unique as that they are open to multiple classes. And so how that would work is if you take this subclass for a wizard that would be at level 2 or a sorcerer at level 3, when you gain a subclass ability, you check the document to see the ability when your next ability triggers. So if it says like level 1 plus, you only get that if your class gives you a subclass ability and you are higher than that level. Remind me about Lorehold later because I have something I want to talk about, and the idea of multiple players taking the same subclass, because I just had a horrific thought.
All those statues you'd be tracking the initiative of.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there's that, but then also very Doctor Who Angels vibe.
yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But let's take a look at Mage of the Quandrix. For those who become Mages of the Quandrix, I'm probably not saying that right, math and magic go hand in hand. Such individuals learn to break down natural phenomena into their core numerical components, and through manipulating those, alter reality on a whim. Their talents range from tangible physics like multiplying plant growth and redistributing elements of probability and acceleration to bizarrely theoretical exercises that warp the fundamentals of space and self. So, just reading off of that, I honestly think back to the Explorer Guides to Wildmount's Graviturgist and Chronoturgist. But
And of course there's some elements of like Ravnica is it in that.
yep. So we've already covered how the subclass works, where you can take it as part of your Sorceress Origin or the Wizard College, and it represents your arcane tradition and how you would acquire new features. So let's see. At first level, you get Quandrix spells. I love it when a subclass gives you spells, like especially as a sorcerer, because you have such a limited spell selection. But this one gives you guidance and Guiding Bolt. Guiding Bolt, if you have never played a cleric, is insane. I'm talking 4d6 radiant damage, and someone has advantage on their next attack at level 1. Insane. Let's see here. You learn the guidance.
And this And this one's only for sorcerers and wizards. So this is for the most iconic of spellcasters. It's like a very dedicated magic feel on this one.
I love guidance. There's never not an excuse to have a player with guidance in your group unless y'all agree that no one wants to take guidance because it makes the game too easy. Let's see. Additional spells when you reach certain levels in this class, as shown on the Quandrix spell table. You learn is super important. That means it's automatically added to your spell book if you're a wizard, and it's automatically added to your spell list if you're a sorcerer. Not a you get this in addition or in exchange, or you can learn these. Just here is the spell scroll. Have fun with spike growth.
And they do that a lot with clerics. So, I
Yeah.
mean, this is kind of has a little bit of cleric flair in that respect.
If you're a wizard, you can add these spells to your spellbook upon learning them without expending any gold and prepare them as normal. It's honestly, if it wasn't, I mean, honestly, I like the list. It's very nature-y. Enlarge,
Yeah,
reduce, spike growth, vitality, hate. It feels very much like a nature cleric.
yeah, this is where I was saying this one with the sorcerer and the wizard. It's like giving them some very druid and later on some bard abilities.
Hmm.
And and it kind of even gets a little bit later into almost barbarian-ish abilities near the end. Just rounding out things that they don't normally have.
Okay, so in addition to the Quandrix spells, when you first pick up this subclass, you get functions of probability. By iterating on the mathematical patterns of reality, you can nudge chance to tilt around a creature. When you cast a spell using a spell slot that targets at least one creature, you can choose that creature or another creature within 30 feet of it, including yourself, and add one of the following effects. Diminishing function: the chosen creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC, or the creature must roll a d6 and subtract the number rolled from the next attack roll it makes before the start of your next turn. So, make I huh. That feels
It's very cutting words.
yes, I was about to say that's cutting words. Supplemental function: once before the start of your next turn, the chosen creature can roll a d6 and add the number rolled to an attack roll or saving throw of its choice. The creature can roll the d6 after rolling the d20, but must decide before any effects of the roll occur. Okay, this one is a little bit. Okay,
And that one's a bit more battle mastery.
yeah.
Battle master.
So when you cast a spell using a spell slot that targets at least one creature, you can choose that creature or another creature within 30 feet of it, including yourself, and add one of the following effects. So you choose them when the spell, when you cast the spell, not when the spell resolves. So you could use supplemental function on yourself with with the attack roll of the spell that is triggering it, I believe.
If not, you could definitely use it with like a combination of a bonus action spell and a cantrip or
Yes.
something.
The only downside to that is you have to be within 30 feet of the target. And neither wizards nor sorcerers. I mean, I've played. Okay, I will. Here's the thing: I have played a storm sorcerer whose primary method of fighting was punching people with light with electric touch. So I will acknowledge that there is some room in melee for straight casters, but you have to be willing to take that hit and be ready to be downed really bad.
It also kind of depends what kind of CR danger level you're in. Because if you're like level 2 and you're always fighting CR4s, that D6 isn't going to do much to stop a hit. But if you're level 2 and you're fighting CR2s, that D6 can make a real big difference in what hits or doesn't hit and give you a bit more safety going into things. So it also kind of depends how deadly the campaign is because I mean, if you're a level 1 and you could take a d6 off the opponent's hit, you'd be a lot more confident going into battle. If you weren't up against a CR3, if you were up against a CR1, you could do that.
Yeah. So I do have a slight issue in with abilities that don't grow over time, but this one it feels okay because it's kind of doing the same thing that a bard does, where you're not looking to alter the whole like probability of the game. You're giving a little nudge here and there.
I mean, it's actually less limited than the Bard ones, which has a set number of these dice,
Yeah.
because as you get to higher caster levels, the number of low-level spells that you have just sitting there that you might not replenish unless you're doing like a dungeon crawl. Like if you're having 1 to 2 combats a day, you're going to have extra spells that you could just throw a spell out there for this effect if you needed to, like, help an ally or something, especially if you took a spell that you can use as a reaction.
Yeah, there is no limit on the number of uses other than the number of spell slots you have. And I'm glad that they did that spell slot because otherwise I could see this being chained off of like cantrips otherwise. And that seems like it would be a bit much. Let's see, velocity shift. You learn to manipulate kinetic formulas and alter the velocity of another creature. When a creature you can see starts its turn or moves to a space within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to force the creature to make a charisma saving throw against your spell save DC, which it can choose to fail. On a failure, the creature is teleported to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. Good God, that was. Okay, so, kinetic
So
formula.
basically, you can move your allies, not just your enemies. That's why you can choose to fail it.
Okay, so when a creature you can see starts its turn or moves to a space within 30 feet of you. So it triggers when something starts its turn or moves within 30 feet of you. You can use your reaction to force the creature to make a charisma saving throw with your standard DC, which it can choose to fail. The fact that it says it can choose to fail indicates that anything that doesn't give you that option, you have to roll the DC on.
Yeah, I believe that's set up to be okay. You can send an enemy away or off a cliff, but you can also send your enemy where, I mean, your ally where they need to be to heal someone, to drag someone off, to be a tank and block someone. Your ally might even be one of the statues.
Yeah. So here is the thing. It's basically, if they are within 30 feet, they have to stay within 30 feet of you. So I could see you using this as someone has spent 30 feet to run up to you. They have burned all their movement. You react to bounce them away from you. Or you can use this as a positioning to help move the rogue into tandem combat with someone. This is really versatile. I like it. I really do.
I mean, if you have someone that's way less melee than you, and say like they were shopping and they're going to try to catch up to the fight because someone picked a fight, and the party was split, they only have to get within 30 feet of you, and you can get them another 60 feet closer because 30 and then 30.
Yeah. Um, I like it. I can definitely see its use. It makes me think of the is it conjuration? Yeah, the conjuration mage's ability to swap places with people when they cast certain spells.
And I mean, it is reaction. This is happening not on your turn. So, like, if someone's running up to stop or get in the way of the big bad or be a blockade, you could just give them that extra 60 feet as your reaction. The 30 feet up to you, the 30 feet beyond, and they just continue their movement and keep running.
Um, the fact that it's like a lot of the other stuff we've been seeing lately, it's keyed off of the number of proficiency bonuses, which means at most you'll be able to use it 6 times per day. And it resets on a long rest, so it's definitely a limited resource, but if used effectively, it's really good. Um,
And I mean, say your healer's on one side of the battlefield and someone who went down is on the other, and they don't have the distance healing word.
Healing word, yeah.
They only have a touch. burn your reaction, yank them from that side of the battlefield to the other side of the battlefield. They can spend their action and get your ally up. It's very it definitely would have a lot of different uses based on battlefield control and positioning.
And I mean, you can honestly use this outside of combat too. I could see this being utility because on a failure, the creature is teleported to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. So if you're looking through someone's window, you can just pop your friend into there and have them go and open the door for you.
I don't want to climb the ledge. You want to drop an enemy off a ledge. You want to go across a river.
Yeah. Let's see here. So we're looking at Null Equation next. This one is the level 10 ability. Through careful calculations, you beset your you beset your enemies with abstract equations that reduce their might. Once per turn, immediately after dealing damage to a creature, you can force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. Constitution saving throws are never fun to make. On a failure, the creature has disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws, and its weapon attacks deal only half damage. These effects last until the start of your next turn. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish long. Okay.
Can you tell I actually have a favorite yet? Because I actually have a favorite. It's this one. I've been
Yeah.
bringing it up since the start.
Okay, so once per turn, immediately after dealing damage to a creature, you can force the creature to make Constitution saving. Okay, so only once per. Okay, so here's the thing. I was looking at this and I had to read that a few times to make sure because my first thought was, oh, wow, magic missile just became broken.
And here's an interesting thing. All of these are keyed off of using them equal to your proficiency bonus, but they're not the same counter. They're separate counters.
Yes, every one of these has their own counter that ticks down.
So, like, even if your proficiency bonus is 2, because, like level 1, level 2, that's 2 for this ability, 2 for that ability. So it really does give you a lot of options for several turns between these.
You're not going to burn out of class abilities quickly with this stuff. And I do like the alternative resources, like using Starry Druid. Using Wild Shape to enter Starry form, or like I did with y'all and several of the items in Second Sight Agency being keyed off of y'all spending hit dice. I would love to see some hit dice use for official stuff.
I thought that made for fun choices. A character that doesn't want to heal them because they could use it later and instantly for party stuff, so balancing your current health.
Quantum tunneling. Your mathematical expertise extends to altering the foundational equations of your very being. You gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Again, that's just flat. It does not matter if it's magic or not. Additionally, you can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain, but you take 1d10 force damage for every 5 feet you move while inside another creature or object. So, walking through a wall can be a little rough.
I mean, you can't take this to your level 14, so it's not that rough, honestly. Like, I mean, you're still sorcerer or wizard hit points.
Which is a d6, so yeah.
But, I mean, if you're, it could be a lot less rough than dealing with 3 guards.
This is just, it's going, no matter what. There's no limitations on this. There's no number of proficiency bonus or spend a spell slot or anything like that. It's just...
It's limited by your hit points, really.
Yeah, you hit level 14 and you're, like, you can ghost through walls.
I mean, this is only sorcerer and wizard, so we are dealing with the d6 hit dice, people. Yeah. So the major limitation of this is your hit points, but not many walls go like 20 feet where you're doing that d10 every 5 feet. A lot of walls are just, you walk through it and you're there.
Yeah, most walls are not 10 feet thick. Most walls aren't even 5 feet thick. So my advice to players who want to use this, get yourself a brooch of shielding, I think it is, that gives you resistance to force damage. Or take 3 levels of Barbarian Rage, take Totem Barbarian Rage, and just run through walls.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you would use judiciously. But I mean, you can also use it down is something interesting to remember. Like if you land on a roof and you're sneaking around, then you're in the building.
Yeah.
So,
So, um, keep in mind, you do not know what is on the other side of walls all the time. Um, so DM advice to DM advice, if a player seems to be abusing this, have fun with it. Make them question every time if they're stepping into a black hole or a open pit or the room of 1,000 daggers.
yeah, but then you just have those people that spend 2 hours trying to figure out a door without a lock or a trap on it. Do that at your own risk and use it judiciously. Because you don't want a group that spends 2 hours boring the heck out of you as a GM trying to get around the no traps and no locks on this suspicious door.
So, Mage of the Quandrix, available to sorcerers and wizards. I honestly like it. I am a big fan of the whole. Oh, what was that book? Neuromancer? No. There was. I can't remember the name of the book now. There was this old sci fi book I read about this guy who figures out teleportation via math. Um, but when you do it, it opens up a gateway and dead people come through or something like that. It's been 20 something years. Don't expect me to remember the details of every book. I'm insane. I'm not that insane. But I do like the whole altering reality through math. Um, honestly, there's not a lot of nature stuff in the abilities beyond the spell list. So it kind of balances out, I guess, and gives it a kind of math-based cleric of nature feel.
I mean, enlarge reduced is very mathematical just because it's usually used for things like with druid stuff. I mean, it at its base core that's very math.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could have your spike growth be like those frequency tables where you make the sound and the sound
Hmm.
goes to different patterns. Like you could really flavor this where it wasn't even nature. It was like frequency and science and just give yourself that lore around it.
So, haste, freedom of movement, and pass wall feel all very right for this class, this subclass to me. The nature spells, aura of vitality, control water, and circle of power, they could swap those out and I wouldn't be terribly upset, but honestly, I feel like they give the class a lot of flavor and were good selections.
I mean, haste kind of feels like computer overclock, so it kind of goes with it a little too, I think.
Uh, when the haste ends, it definitely feels like computer overclock went bad. Uh, so far going through these, am liking most of them. There's a few like small tweaks I would make here and there, but there's no glaring major issues like the UA Dampier's bite stacking or the Fey Hobgoblin just I can comboing with Mastermind Rogue being able to give out unlimited bonuses multiple times. Um, so far, it seems pretty well thought out and balanced, which kind of goes against my initial assumption that they rushed to release this because of the Amazon leak. But, yeah.
I mean, it might just, even if they did rush, like, just what I was reading of, like, the cards in the set, I was like, I kind of hope they do this crossover. This feels very role play, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
mean,
I didn't get to play this one, but, definitely, like, I saw that and I was like, man, I kind of wish they'd do this as a setting book. So I'm very happy about this.
I'm really liking this so far. And honestly, I have been very up in the air on campaign 2. And now I understand that Dr. Plant is not a fan of this and may have some issues. Hopefully, if we do this, he will decide to put those aside and join us. But if he chooses to sit out a campaign, I can't blame him for that.
Yeah, I didn't really look into it, but I heard that Pathfinder was doing something with the magic school also, and I know Troika, which is more popular overseas, just finished a Kickstarter for their magic school, which I backed because it looked awesome. So it's definitely something that is kind of moving into a sphere of influence right now among several systems.
Yeah.
Um, I think definitely if I were looking at a character or a campaign with this, I would look at other systems, other resources too.
Hmm.
And because how magic affects your world is going to be a big thing as a DM with these.
Definitely yes.
And it's going to have to go beyond whatever the source book does to whatever like I mean it is a whole book, so I'm sure they will have a lot on the setting, but Magic the Gathering stuff is very varied, and it has a lot of ancient stuff or areas that don't work like you expect them, are very different localities just being a few blocks over. So all of their settings have a lot of room for homebrew and strange effects and things that don't always make sense within the greater lore, but that someone maybe a spark or something else has exerted their influence on the world. So I think this is going to be one of the books that allows for the greatest leniency with how a DM interprets the world.
Hmm. So, this has been Mage of the Quandrix, Sorcerer and Wizard subclass. Uh, Clearly one of Zyziva's favorites. Honestly, I'm a fan of it too. Um, there's a
I mean, the first one with the statue is going to be like someone in the group's probably going to want it, but um these are very, five kind of really strong concepts. So I think it's going to be kind of more like a personality test than a mechanics test.
we all tested is it when we were planning for Ravnica.
I did go Gari for different reasons, but yes, we all did.
Okay, so